Josh Kerr just broke a record that stood for 27 years, but the shoe on his feet only works at one exact speed. Go slower and it fights you like a hill. Go faster and it launches you forward. So here's the question nobody wants to answer directly. Did the man break the record or did the shoe? On July 18, 2026, at London Stadium, in front of a sold-out crowd of 60,000 people, Josh Kerr ran the mile in 3 minutes, 42 seconds, and 66 hundredths. That erased a number every distance runner had feared for almost 3 decades. Hicham El Garouge ran 3:43.13 back in 1999, and nobody got within a full second of it. Not once in 27 years. Kerr didn't just beat it. He became the first man in history to break 3:43 for the mile, finishing 3 seconds clear of American runner Yared Nuguse in second place. Kerr had announced his intentions months earlier, publicly stating he was going after the record, then had to go out and actually deliver in front of a home crowd with every eye on him. To understand why that's such a big deal, you need to understand the mile itself. It's brutal because it demands 2 opposite skills at once. You need the raw speed of a sprinter and the pain tolerance of a marathoner. 4 laps, each one close to 55 seconds, no tactical rest, no easing off halfway through. You go hard from the gun and you hold on through 4 minutes of pure suffering. There's no room to hide weakness anywhere in that race. Kerr's body doesn't even match the mold you'd expect. Most elite milers are lean and almost float across the track. Kerr is bigger, with larger feet and more raw power pushing into the ground than nearly anyone racing that distance. His engineers had to solve a problem no shoe company had really faced before, because a normal spike couldn't handle how hard he hits the track without breaking down underneath him. Kerr is also no stranger to the sport's biggest stages. He already held 2 Olympic medals in the 1,500 meters and multiple world titles indoors. And they weren't just fighting biology. They were fighting the rulebook too. In November 2024, World Athletics capped every track spike at 20 millimeters of sole height. That's it. No exceptions. And they check it with precision tools, not guesswork, at multiple points along the sole. This rule exists because the sport had watched shoe technology sprint ahead of what felt fair, and officials wanted a hard line that every brand had to respect equally. Brooks, Kerr's shoe sponsor, had about 5 months to answer one impossible-sounding question. How do you build a shoe powerful enough to launch a world record, but thin enough to still pass inspection? Their answer wasn't more cushioning. It was a shape. They built the sole with a curve, almost like the profile of a bicycle tire. Danny Orr, who led product development at Brooks, explained the idea directly to reporters the day before the race. If an average runner puts these shoes on and jogs, the curve fights them. Their heel lands first, hits that steep curve, and the shoe barely gives. It feels like running uphill. You'd burn more energy and go nowhere fast, which sounds like a design flaw until you understand who it was actually built for. At 26 kilometers an hour, roughly 16 miles per hour, everything changes. That's close to Kerr's actual race pace. At that speed, he doesn't land on his heel at all. He strikes with his midfoot and rolls onto his forefoot in a fraction of a second. That's exactly when the curved sole stops fighting him and starts working for him instead. Rather than resisting his stride, it rolls him forward through each step. What feels like a wall to a jogger feels like a gentle downhill to Kerr running at full speed. This shoe was never built to be an everyday trainer. It was built to do one job, at one speed for one man on one day. Even Kerr himself only wears the Hyperion 222 on his hardest training days, because at any pace slower than race speed, the shoe's geometry works against him instead of for him. Now here's where the engineering gets serious. Getting that effect precise enough to matter at world record pace isn't something you figure out by testing a handful of prototypes and hoping for the best. Brooks used finite element analysis, the same kind of simulation software used to design aircraft parts and race cars. They fed that simulation years of data built around Kerr specifically. High-speed camera footage of his stride, pressure maps showing exactly how his foot strikes the ground, and oxygen testing done on the actual track he trains on. What they found was extreme. Kerr hits the ground with so much force that a standard racing spike would likely break down under repeated use. So Brooks made a radical call. They stripped out almost all the heel cushioning most runners rely on and packed the structure into the front third of the shoe instead, built around a carbon fiber plate tuned specifically to how hard Kerr pushes off the ground. It's described as the stiffest plate Brooks has ever built. Put an average runner's weight on it, and it barely bends at all. But under Kerr's power, it works like a spring loaded with exactly the right amount of tension for his stride. The whole build was called Project 222, and that name wasn't random or thrown in for branding. 222 seconds was the exact target from the start. That's 3 minutes and 42 seconds, the number Kerr needed to hit to beat the old record. Every detail on the shoe chased that number. The outsole carries 222 individual carbon fiber traction elements, a direct nod to the goal they were chasing. Mixed in are permanent titanium pins that don't exist on any spikes sold to the public. Even the plate itself was shaped to match the way Kerr pushes evenly through both feet as he leans into the turns on the track. The upper wasn't pulled from an existing mold either. Brooks scanned both of Kerr's feet in 3 dimensions and built the shoe around that exact shape, using materials the company says they had never used in a track spike before that day. Before the prototype ever reached the track, it was sent to an independent testing lab, then tested again in a separate location to confirm the results held up, before finally reaching World Athletics for approval. And it didn't stop at the shoes. Kerr also wore a custom racing suit built from a full body scan and designed for 2 things at once: aerodynamics and heat control in the summer conditions. Laser-cut perforations let heat escape without breaking the airflow around his body as he moved. Every piece of what he wore that day was engineered specifically for him and for that one race alone. So is any of this legal? Yes. And that's actually the most interesting part of this entire story. People hear about a shoe engineered this precisely and assume it must be cutting corners somewhere behind the scenes. It isn't. The Hyperion 222 went through World Athletics' official shoe approval process just days before the race and made the approved list without issue. Nothing about it broke the rules that govern the sport. What makes it remarkable is how close it came to the edge without ever crossing it. Every material, every measurement was pushed right up to that 20mm limit without going a fraction over. Compare that to what El Guerrero had access to in 1999. He ran his record in traditional foam with off-the-shelf spikes pulled from a catalog. No carbon plate, no computer model geometry, no years of personal biomechanical data fed into a simulation designed for aircraft engineering. Just training, raw talent, and whatever shoes happened to be available at the time. That record still lasted 27 years anyway, longer than almost any other mark in the sport, which says something about how rare a performance like that really is, shoes or no shoes. So here's the real question, and it's one worth actually sitting with instead of rushing past. If El Guerrero had this level of shoe technology back in 1999, would he have run under 3 minutes and 40 seconds?